Hello, friends. This is Colleen.
And this is Margaret.
And welcome to the Cousins Weird podcast. We are cousins and best friends, and we're going to bring you true, bizarre, spooky, weird, eerie stories from everywhere.
Yes, Colleen's more of the haunted house type of weird, and I'm more of the did Egyptians make mummies kind of weird.
Yeah, so we each have our own
expertise, if you will,
in these areas. One of the cool things about we're a spirited podcast, so we are going to be drinking spirits to fit our theme. For sure. And today we're drinking whiskey sours, because our story takes place in the late 1800s, and as you know, whiskey was the drink of choice.
In the United States, for sure.
Yeah. So this story is based in the United States. We made ourselves whiskey sours. They look delicious.
Cheers.
We're cheersing. We're tasting. Yum.
Delicious.
So we're kind of wimps a little bit.
Just a little.
And we put some seltzer in our whiskey sour, which is probably not.
It's not that we're wimps, it's that we're old and we've been there and done that, and hangovers suck. Mm-hmm. So we're more on the sip it because it tastes good kind of vibe.
We've matured in our years, and now we're ready to do a very sophisticated podcast
about creepy shit.
Because we've been obsessed with that shit since we were young. So anyway, today's is kind of spooky, kind of bizarre, kind of everything. It's a cool story. You may have heard of it. It is the Winchester Mystery House. Ooh. It's a mystery. So,
I know a little bit about this because I listened to another podcast that talked about it. Colleen has not heard that podcast. She just read about it.
I read about it because I read about weird things all the time.
So I have base knowledge about it. Like, I know the gist of it, but I don't, I'm not as in-depth learned about it as Colleen.
Yes, and I dove right in. I've read. And the more I read, the more I think that there's two theories on this house, okay? And we're going to get into that. And I'll tell you my theory on it. But the Winchester House all started because the heiress of the Winchester Rifle Company, repeating rifle company's fortune, kind of had this paranoia of where her money has come from. So there's a legend behind why the house started, but it basically is a never-ending building, remodeling, renovating of this house for 36 years. She non-stopped with it, okay? But I think we need to go back in time to set, a foundation to the story, right?
So why she did this?
Yes,
nonsense.
Why? Because there's things that happened in her life that led her to this, okay? It wasn't like she just, there's reasons. Okay, so Sarah was born in New Haven, Connecticut, to her parents, and no one knows if she was born in anytime between 1835 and 1840. They don't have a clue. No one knows when Sarah was born, but it was in that time period.
Yeah, people didn't keep the best record.
Must be not. She was number 5 of 7 children, so there's a lot of kids in her house. And like I said, she's in New Haven, Connecticut, and her mom's name was Sarah Burns, and her dad's name was Leonard Pardee. So her maiden name is Pardee. And her dad was a really progressive guy, and he would invite these intelligent people to his home and these free thinkers into his house to have they probably had drinks and talked and meeting of the minds kind of thing.
Right.
So Sarah really got into that kind of stuff. She loved to learn, and by 10 or something, she knew 4 languages.
Which isn't really what women did then either.
No. She was very involved in her learning, which it was exactly. She wasn't what women were doing then. So she would got really inspired by this. She learned 4 languages at a young age. She was able to compose music. She excelled in math and science, which are none of the things that women focused on in the 1800s. Women didn't do that. They were supposed to needlepoint or something.
They're supposed to have babies and keep house, and if they were wealthy, they did needlepoint and organized balls and dinners. And
if not, all they did was
like
raise
that.
babies and cook food.
And if they were poor, they just cleaned the house incessantly, cooked food all day, because back then it took all day to cook food.
Yeah.
You basically were cooking from nonstop from the moment you woke up at before the sun came up till after the sun set.
I would have to been born wealthy, because I'm not doing that. I want to plan balls instead of cooking all day. But anyway, Sarah was all about learning. She actually attended the only female Yale program. It was the Young Ladies of Collegiate Institution.
Ooh, that sounds fancy.
And she was called, they said she was a child prodigy, because she was super smart. Yeah. So she decided, no, she didn't decide this, because she can't decide how tall you're going to be. But she ended up only being 4'10". She was very tiny. She weighed like 90 pounds. And she was apparently beautiful. I've seen pictures of her. I mean, what we say is beautiful from the 1800s might be different than beautiful today. So probably because she was little and tiny. Whatever. But there are pictures of her online. You can go see how beautiful she was.
Were there actually photographs, or were there paintings?
I think it's a photograph.
Yeah,
because she was alive until the 20s, so.
Yeah, so they're probably pictures of her just older, for sure.
Right. So, she did all these great things. And because her father was, her nickname of the time was Belle of New Haven. So she was a catch.
Oh, yeah.
Men were probably trying to get after her.
Well, she was tiny and beautiful and wealthy and smart.
She had all the things.
Care about the smart part.
No, they didn't care, but she was wealthy and beautiful and tiny. So those were things that people wanted. So her family ran the same circles as the Winchester family. So she met William, who is the only son of Oliver Winchester, who is the owner of the Winchester repeating rifle company.
Was he the inventor?
Yes. His father was. Okay. Now, they owned some kind of clothing thing before that, and they turned it into the rifle thing. I don't really know. I didn't read too much into that. But because I wanted this more to be about Sarah, you have to lay this groundwork, though, because if you don't, it doesn't make sense.
It's so funny, because I'm a Supernatural watcher, and you say Winchester, automatically
Winchester
my brain goes to Sam and Dean Winchester.
I know.
Because, Dean...
I bet they are hotter than William. I don't know. I didn't see pictures of William, but I just have a feeling that they might be hotter.
Yeah, back then, people didn't have the best hygiene, and they didn't brush their teeth normally. Right. So that's a bad teeth. So
when she married, in September of 1862, she married William. Like I said, he's the only son of Oliver. And while they were married, the Winchester Rifle Company, they were the first to make firearms that fired multiple times without being needed to be reloaded. So if you think of during the war,
right,
that's huge, right? So that was 1873 is when that gun rifle came out. I don't know gun things, so I'm just gonna. I don't care about it either that much, so I didn't really look into it. But you know what I mean? If you're thinking about war, so they were titled the gun that won the West, which is kind of sad if you think of it, because it means it killed a bunch of Native American people. Yeah, and not only did we bring them plague and all the other horrible things, we just killed them off and we went across the country. Yeah. So, basically the guns killed a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. So they sold them. They made tons of money, obviously. So, in July 12th, in 1866, Sarah gave birth to her daughter, Annie. No, not Annie.
Not Annie?
No.
That's not her name?
No.
Is it
Annie Party Winchester. But this is sad, though, because she died 40 days after she was born.
Aww.
She had a rare disease that she suffered called marasmus, which is a disease that causes malnutrition because you can't metabolize proteins correctly.
Oh, that sucks.
I know. That's so sad.
That's terrible.
So obviously she's heartbroken. And then, so that was in 1866. 1880, William's father, Oliver, died. So William, being the only son, inherited the whole shebang. All the Winchester fortune. He inherited it all. But he had tuberculosis. So he was suffering with that. Within a year, within a year, William dies.
That's terrible.
So what does that mean for Sarah?
She lost her baby, and then she lost her husband.
Yes. So here Sarah is, mourning the death of her child that she's been dealing with this whole time, and then her husband dies, and then she's handed over, now listen to this, she inherited, now remember, this is 1880. she inherited $20 million.
Ooh.
That would be 500 million today.
Jeez, that's crazy.
But that's not it. There's more.
Oh. But wait.
There's more.
Okay.
So, she also got 50% stake in the company. So that meant she got $1,000 a day on top of the millions she had.
Holy shit.
So that would be like...
Can you imagine if her percent was $1,000 a day? How many rifles were they selling a day? Holy shit.
No, like, if you think about, like, I read that Wild Bill... Was it Wild Bill Hickok? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Annie Oakley, Theodore Roosevelt. They all were, like, big Winchester gun-toting freaks. They were like, woo!
Winchester!
They were shooting their guns in the air. So, like, it was a big deal. So, yeah. So, how many guns are they selling? And how many people died, right? Like,
right. How many guns did those people kill?
No.
How many? I've had literally 2 inches of this drink, and I'm already...
And it's seltzer.
I know. It's like, I'm such a lightweight.
Oh, okay.
Oh, boy. Okay, how many people
did those guns kill?
Yeah.
So, so say today this was us and we inherited this, that would be $26,000 a day.
Holy shit.
Can you imagine?
I can't.
So what's that in a year?
It's like a year's salary.
365 times 26,000.
I'll take what you make in a day for I'll trade you what I make in a year for what you make in a day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So she inherits all this money and she's in mourning and she's really struggling because she's thinking of where her wealth came from. So she has some
feeling guilt. Like probably like, oh my God, I'm cursed. This is a curse. You know,
because
all this blood is on my hands.
Mm-hmm. I just sipped, sorry. That's exactly what she felt like because she was like, all this money came from deaths, the blood money. It's basically blood money.
This is why I have such tragedy.
Tragedy, yeah, because we're just letting people die left and right with our guns. So, legend states that because at this time, spiritualists were big, like mediums were big because
it was the spiritualism movement too.
Yes, yep. And like people had died in the Civil War.
Tons of seances.
How
awesome would it have been to live back then?
I
like,
know.
seances, like have a house party and you have dinner and you have a seance.
Let's do it.
How much
I want to do it now. So at the time, it was a big deal. So she said, I'm going to go to Boston because she's living in Connecticut. She's New England. She's from Boston or that area. And so she was a medium named Adam Coons in Boston. Apparently he was
the Boston medium.
Yeah, the Boston medium. It could be
the Long Island medium.
Yeah. Yes, he's the Boston.
He's the Boston.
And he said that she was being haunted by the ghosts of the people who died from the guns.
He's very canny.
And he says, the only thing she can do is go west. Go west, my son. Daughter. Yes. Girl. Woman. Build a never-ending home to appease these spirits. Because you cannot, you're going to end up dead. If you stop building, you're going to die. You're going to be with your husband.
Right. Once you stop building is when you die.
Yes. So she was like, oh, well, that makes perfect sense. Let me just pack everything up.
Truth, man. You speak the truth, man.
Yes, that makes perfect sense. Let me pack my things and move across country. All the way from East Coast to the West. Let's do all that.
California?
Yeah, she went to California. So she left New Haven and headed to California. And in 1884, she purchased an 8-bedroom farmhouse in San Jose, California. And that's where she would begin her never-ending renovations.
Right. So
she ended up in San Jose.
How many acres did she buy?
There were 142 acres she bought in California total.
Right.
But I think it got down to like 4 acres where the house sat.
A 4-acre house.
Well, I don't know if the house actually was 4
acres. I think it was.
It sits on a big plot. It's big. Well, I'll tell you how many square feet it has in a minute.
That's insane.
So, and during this time, the papers were full of ads for people to move out west, right? Because go to California, it's a new place to go. So this stuff is all being influenced very much at that time. So that made kind of sense. And she had family.